What's your Catholic drive time?
With Joe McLean and Emily Alcaraz.
In chat is John DeJak, president of Father Gabriel Richard Private High School in Michigan. Good morning, John.
Morning.
Thanks for being on with us. So let's get started. We're talking about Michigan lockdowns and your pending lawsuit with the state of Michigan. Can you start by telling us what is the status of lockdowns in your state?
Yeah, a little bit of background here. Throughout the pandemic, from March of last year onward, the governor issued a series of orders that restricted a certain activity in the state. Such orders were then deemed in, I believe, October by the Michigan Supreme Court to be unconstitutional under the governor's authority. So what ended up happening is the transfer of those very orders went to a more constitutional route under the state of Michigan, which was the Department of Health and Human Services. So in essence, the same type of orders were issued, but by that government agency versus the governor herself.
Okay, and so, John, you're the president of Father Gabriel Richard. So what did that mean for your school? What did the lockdowns look like?
Sure. So at the very beginning, a series of things. At the very beginning of the pandemic in March, there was the stay-at-home order, which was issued, and that was for a 2-week period, but then it got extended and basically obliterated the rest of in-person learning for the rest of the year. In the summer, a roadmap to going back to school was issued, and certain protocols had to be followed, and we expended a large amount of money to make sure that we were in compliance with this to allow us to open in-person learning in the academic year. Everything from protocols of spacing to mask wearing to everything else. And great expenditures were put out for that. Then there were another, because of a reported surge in the cases, the cold and flu season, there was another order that shut down the schools. And then that order was then extended, which was the occasion for this lawsuit.
Okay, and the lawsuit that you filed, you're not alone, right? You said there were other
Correct.
high schools that have joined the lawsuit. Can you explain?
Correct. Yep, sure. Basically, our lobbying organization in Lansing is called MANS, the Michigan Association of Non-Public Schools, and that consists of Catholic and Christian schools throughout the state, and it covers all the Catholic dioceses of the state. They, in conjunction with Father Gabriel Richard High School, my school, Lansing Catholic High School, which is in the Diocese of Lansing, and Everest Academy, a private Catholic school in the Archdiocese of Detroit, and then different families from each of those schools decided to file suit because this is almost death by 1,000 cuts in terms of these shutdowns and then back and then 2 weeks shutdown again and whatnot. And we allege that this is inhibitive of our free exercise of religion. And especially since, given the protocol, we have been cooperative, and given the protocols we have in place, our kids are safe, and the data proves that.
We're speaking with John DeJak. I just gave you a doctoral degree.
Oh,
Congratulations, by the way.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll take it.
President of Father Gabriel Richard Private High School in Michigan, talking about the lawsuits here. Now, here's the question. What are the risks? So there was lots of talk about asymptomatic transmissions, but it seems like that's been proven not to be a case, especially among the very young, which would be your students. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, there hasn't been any data to show that there has been transmission by the schools and even making an impact into the larger community. Have there been kids sick? Yes. Have the protocols shown or have parents been individually responsive and responsible in understanding that and having kids tested and ensuring that they not come to school? Yes. But there has not been any spread within the school itself. Interestingly enough, I think 1.6% of the over 8,000 individuals in the schools in the Diocese of Lansing showed any sort of infection at one point or another, 1.1% in the Archdiocese of Detroit, which is far larger
Wow.
school system. So given the very, very low infection rate and the lack of evidence of spread within the schools, this certainly is, we consider to be a bit of overkill on the government's part.
Yeah, it sure seems like it. And so can you tell us a little bit about what are the effects that this is having on the children? Have grades gone down? How are they doing?
Yeah, I think by common consent, in-person learning is the ideal. I think most everyone agrees with that, even if we might disagree politically and whatnot. I think the proof is in the pudding, given the CDC guidance, different professional agencies such as the American Pediatric Association and others, who, and even most recently, the day after our lawsuit was filed, a group of 130 physicians, mostly pediatricians in and around the Ann Arbor area, not exactly a place known for conservative politics, have issued an appeal to put the kids back in school. And this appeal is directed mainly to the public schools. But the deleterious effects on the kids in terms of depression, in terms of not learning well, not having the accountability that one would expect in an in-person setting, and lack of comprehension, kind of do-it-yourself, read on your own type of education might be appropriate for a graduate school, but certainly not in the formative years of K-8 or 9-12.
Okay, hold that thought. We're talking with I keep giving him a doctoral degree. John DeJak, president of Father Gabriel Richard Private High School, about the Michigan lockdowns and the lawsuit.
So, John DeJak, what is the status of the lawsuit currently?
So we filed in December after the extension of this lockdown, and the federal judge who had the case basically held a hearing a week later. Arguments were presented. A week after that, we had alleged violations of the First Amendment in terms of free exercise of religion, as well as sought injunctive relief, which means basically an immediate order that would allow us to go back to school immediately and suspend, in essence, the Health and Human Service Department's order. He did not issue an order until December 21st, which basically made the point moot, because the need for the immediate relief was over, because the lockdown or the extension of the lockdown was or the ceasing of in-person learning ended on the 20th. We were on Christmas vacation, so he denied the order basically because of a timing issue. However, the case is still very much alive. The state has until February to issue its response to our allegations of violations of or rather our assertions of the violations of our constitutional liberties. And given the Supreme Court having recently ruled in the Diocese of Brooklyn case, as well as some other cases before the court, which they seem poised, not a prognosticator on the Supreme Court, but they do seem poised to protect religious liberty in the First Amendment. So we're very confident that we have a very good case.
That's good, right? Because after the Diocese of Brooklyn case, we've seen a lot of victories for Catholic schools and parishes, but you guys have it especially rough down in Michigan, or up in Michigan, I should say. So I know there was another case, I think, in schools in Colorado where, again, it was a matter of time. The court ruled against them simply because it wouldn't make a difference approving their lawsuit at this point. So if the lawsuit is shot down, if this does not go well, will you be filing another lawsuit? Are you going to keep fighting this?
That's a very good question. A part of that is a strategic decision based on the lawyers, which, although I am a lawyer, I'm not, I will defer to those who practice in the realm of the First Amendment to look at that aspect. But I would certainly substantively assert our right again and again that this is very fundamental to our lives, the worship of God, the practice of our religion, and not just worship, but also everything that the practice of our religion entails, which is education. So I would loudly and boldly assert this as something that the founders of this country wanted protected, and is something that no government can take away from us. What that means in terms of an actual subsequent lawsuit or appellate process and that sort of thing, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens.
Right. And so how is the diocese supporting you in this lawsuit, or are they?
So the diocese has been very supportive. As I said, by virtue of the fact that this MANS group, which is our private school organization in Michigan, is part of the lawsuit, that has a ripple effect on every Catholic school in the entire state. So should we win this, any sort of state mandate, which again is not in place now because of the suspension of the extension of that lockdown, but if in any subsequent mandate, that would have a ripple effect in assuring that every Catholic school, every Christian school who's part of this consortium can open up and keeping the protocols in place and that have been shown to be working well, and can have their in-person learning. Interestingly enough, if I can interject on another point, a number of other schools who are not part of this consortium have filed their own lawsuits. I think we may have stiffened the spine of a couple folks to do that, and that's a very positive sign for religious schools asserting their liberties under the Constitution.
Yeah, that is good news. We love to see that. Now, speaking of the diocese, what do the mass restrictions look like in Michigan? Are those also generally more restrictive?
For Holy Mass?
Right, the liturgy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's depends on the diocese, and we're in the Diocese of Lansing. That covers Ann Arbor. Bishop Boyer has been extremely good as to trying to strike that balance between maintaining the dignity of the liturgy and people's ability to go to Mass, while at the same time respecting those who might have compromised immunities and whatever else. So he has left it largely, he has some basic guidelines, but has largely left it to the individual pastors and their parishes to implement. I can say from my parish that it's been excellent. I think the churches have been open, masses have been happening. In fact, in Ann Arbor, St. Thomas Parish in particular has increased the number of masses, and confession. The priests have been heroic and very creative in having confessions outside for hours a day ever since the pandemic. So it's been kind of almost a liturgical, or rather a sacramental renaissance since this thing has happened, which is kind of an unforeseen effect on this thing.
Right.
We're talking with John DeJak, president of the Father Gabriel Richard Private High School, about the Michigan lawsuit and lockdown. John, one quick question. We've got about 5 minutes left in our conversation with you, but you mentioned a minute ago that you thought you might have strengthened the spines of others. Do you see a groundswell here? I mean, it seems like we've seen it in California recently, where there was an SSPX priest that even successfully sued the state. Do you think we can get some groundswell here to be able to preserve our religious liberties, or is it just going to be just a small handful of people like yourself that are going to stand up?
Yeah, I hope there's a groundswell. I'm confident. I think when people think of a lawsuit, the immediacy of even mentioning that word is terror, right? As if the merely going in to have adjudicated your rights or your liberties, somehow, if you're ruled against, you're going to be either thrown in jail or adversely affected or whatever else. I think that's just kind of a natural. No one wants to, everyone wants peace. No one wants to have a controversy. So I think that might be just a natural reticence that people have initially. But when you explain it, simply going in to assert that which is owed and due to us already, and we want to have a judge understand that our point of view and read that in light of the Constitution, I think when you explain it that way, it should not be controversial. So let us make use of these tools that are at our disposal, especially when we do have very actionable infringements on our liberty. So hopefully it does strengthen the spine of others. I think seen in that way, we can still be good citizens and joyful Christians in terms of pursuing these things. And just as anyone else would have the right on any other fundamental infringement.
We have about 2 minutes left in our conversation. John, what do you think your chances are?
I think they're pretty good, actually. I'm rather confident. We have superb lawyers. We have superb legal counsel. I think the arguments are solid. The question, it's in one sense a philosophical question, but it's also a very technical legal one, depending on the jurisdiction. Is safety versus freedom. It's always been at the heart of many of our political debates and whatnot. And not to make this a political thing necessarily, but are there instances where the exercise of the Catholic faith and the freedom of people to practice the Catholic faith can be restricted? One can practice the faith in a gulag. That's a natural right given to us by God by virtue of our baptism to practice the faith. And so, on a theological and even a legal basis, that I think that we have a very good case, and we'll see what happens.
All right, John, DeJak, president of Father Gabriel Richard Private High School, thank you for being on with us and sharing your situation with us. We'll be praying for a great outcome for you and for your students.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I won't, real quick, before you go, before we have to say goodbye, what's the website? Where can people find more information?
Sure. The high school's website is fgrhs.org.
All right. Praise be to God. We'll post a link to that on our live video feed over on YouTube or on Facebook.com/.
We've also posted
GRN
the article from Catholic News Agency on the Facebook stream.
For you, we hope you pray for us.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.